Well, hello there, and welcome to my Almost Midlife Crisis, the show that dives into that tricky time in our lives when we're no longer young, but we definitely aren't old yet either. I'm your host, Jennifer Villamel. Today marks the start of season 2 and the official beginning of my own actual midlife crisis as I find myself at a pivot point. About a month ago, I was laid off from my job, and for the first time in my life, I have no idea what's next. Oh, and did I mention that I'm also pregnant and in my second trimester? Yeah, it's crazy times over here. Today's episode is bringing you all up to speed on how the hell we got here, where we are today, and where are we going from here. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. We are so happy to have you. And if you've been one of my loyal listeners from day one and all through season 1, then welcome back. I've missed you over the last couple weeks. So, without further ado, let's jump into it and get into season 2. First of all, I would like to specify that I was laid off. I was not fired. There's a difference. I have been fired twice in my life. Both when I was trying to get into radio. One time, I was actually fired on air. Oh, yeah. Callers were voting on my future, voting in front of me. I'm sure, listen, there are some residual trauma that is in me from that experience. But I would like to say, for the record, that technically they voted to not fire me. Anyway, looking back, I am very thankful that I was fired twice from my radio DJ dream because radio is a dying medium and I probably would have switched careers at this point anyway. So it probably saved me a hassle. And yes, I do realize how ironic that sentence is considering I am now the host of a podcast, which is pretty much today's radio show. But podcasts are different. Podcast is a growing medium. Radio is a decreasing medium. So you know what? I'm going in the right direction. But those were the only 2 times I was ever fired. And since I've had, since then, I've had a really successful career in advertising, and I have not once been fired, my friend. I have seen layoffs happen multiple times. I just never was on the receiving end. Well, until now, apparently. I will say being laid off feels a whole lot different than being fired. Like when you're fired, you know the reason, more or less. Like it's not a surprise, right? Like in radio, I knew it was because I was sick one day and I missed my shift. Now, was that enough to fire me? No, I don't think so. Was that enough to humiliate me on the airwaves? Because, yeah, you better believe I was literally how old was I? Like 20? I was crying openly on air as the callers were calling in, and my boss at the time was making fun of me. Yeah. Was it worth me being sick one day? Was that enough to require that? Personally, I don't think so. And I feel like in today's world, that would never fly. But I at least knew why I was getting fired. When I have had the unfortunate job of firing employees in the past, it usually comes out of a performance review or a probation period of some sort. So it's not like usually this big surprise when the final conversation happens. But being laid off, well, that feels a hell of a lot different. It comes as a total surprise. You don't have to have done anything wrong or have had any performance concerns. You aren't expecting the conversation and you immediately start to wonder why out of everyone you were chosen. To be honest, like the whole idea of not knowing versus knowing, I think I'd almost rather be fired than laid off. Because at least you know, right? But it's that unknowing that can really mess with your head, isn't it? So what the hell happened, you asked? Well, for those of you that were not part of season 1, back in November, I became one of the many people that quit during the Great Resignation. And after taking a month or so off, I accepted this executive leadership position at a new ad agency. And listen, I was excited because the company had seen a lot of growth over the past couple of years. And it was this great opportunity to help build a media practice according to my vision, how I wanted to do it. And I started in early February. And in mid-April, I was part of a larger set of layoffs. And so I can avoid a lawsuit because, I'm not trying to go to court right now. I am not going to go into details as to what exactly caused this company to have layoffs. But looking back, hindsight 2020, I think it was a blessing in disguise. And can we chat about that phrase really quick? Hindsight 2020, which almost has like a whole new meaning now, considering 2020 is like scarred in all of our heads for multiple reasons. But hindsight 2020, we've all experienced it. But I really thought that at almost 40, I could start maybe, I don't know, avoiding this phenomenon and instead see what's happening in real time. I guess in some ways, maybe I've gotten better over the years at this, but will there ever be a time in our lives where we no longer experience this? Or is that actually impossible to achieve? And we're always going to have hindsight 2020. Anyway, I think this was supposed to happen. Of course, don't get me wrong. This is after the initial shock and the heartbreak and the anger worked their way through my system. Oh yeah, I went through all the emotions. And they were probably heightened because I was pregnant or am pregnant, not past tense. And yeah, we're going to get into that at some point too. But getting laid off when you have raging hormones makes for, I don't know, a bit of a roller coaster. But thankfully, when it happens, my mom actually flew in on the first flight from Florida to help me get my mind off of it, help me work through it, and get to the current acceptance stage where I'm at much quicker than if I was by myself dealing with it. And listen, I am married now. It's not that I'm by myself, but my husband actually had to go out of town that weekend. So it literally was, I found out, and the next day he was going out of town. So my mom came in, so I didn't have to just like sit in my own thoughts, which can get pretty dark for that whole weekend. So I needed that so bad because instead of dwelling in my feelings or feeling sorry for myself, because she was here, we could focus on the baby, which I realized that I hadn't even really allowed myself to focus on because I started my job right before I found out I was pregnant. I mean, right before, literally the week prior to me missing my period and taking a test, I started my job. Good timing. And so we went to some baby stores. We checked out strollers and cribs, and I bought my first baby item, which was this adorable little blanket that I think you use for a crib or a stroller. I have no idea. Listen, this is like my first time at this, but it was cute and had an elephant on it, so I bought it. And when I was paying for the blanket, the cashier asked me, they always ask, like, is this a gift? And for the first time in my life, when I was buying a baby item, it was so surreal to say, no, this is not a gift. Like it was a really weird moment for me, but also it was happy. Like I was glad to say it. And it helped that while she was here, we also stumbled upon some solid series available on Netflix right now. So for those of you that still have your subscriptions after they made us all not share, if you're looking for something to binge while eating ice cream and you're looking for a recommendation, I have two for you. I probably have more, but two specifically from that weekend: Pieces of Her and Anatomy of a Scandal, both on Netflix. No, I'm not getting paid by Netflix. They're just really good. Both are mysteries, which I love. Like I love a crime story, Both are mysteries. They're going to keep you clicking next episode faster than you can say another scoop of ice cream, please. So go watch them. But you see, if I'm being really honest with myself, I don't know what I want to do next in my career. I have spent the last almost 20 years in advertising. And for the last couple years, I've felt a bit lost. I go back and forth between considering leaving advertising altogether and getting inspired. Like sometimes I see an article or a project that's really cool or a piece of creative, and I just fall in love with it all over again. I've been finding it harder to motivate myself, and I've felt this reduced sense of passion that I have felt for this industry pretty much up until now. Maybe part of that is due to the aftermath of going through a pandemic. I mean, a lot of people during the Great Recession over the last couple of years were really questioning their choices during the pandemic, right? Not just about work, about their life, etc. But work was definitely part of it. And everyone was burnt out from the mixture of stressors. I know I was, for sure. I did like a whole episode about it. But maybe part of it is natural as we move through our careers and we try to figure out the next steps. I'm not exactly sure why, but I had been looking for a change for the last couple of years. And that's one of the reasons I resigned from my old position. I knew it wasn't my future there. I had learned a lot, and I did like working there, but it just got to a point where I just knew this wasn't going to be where I was going to be at forever. But I resigned, and I wanted to take some time, and I wanted to figure out what's next. And then during that, I was approached by this latest agency. And honestly, I never thought I would go to another agency. I thought I was done with agencies and agency life, but the culture and the career opportunity were really interesting to me. And even though the job was remote, which I don't know, my personality, like the remote, 100% remote thing is really not for me. I'm more of like a hybrid. I like the flexibility, but 100% remote, it's a lot. It's just a lot. You're just sitting by yourself over Zoom all day. I don't know. It's not my thing. But the office was in LA, and it made us consider, I don't know, a potential for a life change, a lifestyle change of a move to another state, which, you know, it was exciting. And I accepted the position. And I did like what I was doing. I loved the people I was working with. I was excited about the opportunity to make a big impact and be part of developing strategic growth and a vision for the future. I knew layoffs were coming, you know, as part of the executive team. I was part of those conversations. I just didn't realize I was also on the list. Awkward. When I got the call, I was in complete shock. Literally, prior to that call of getting laid off, I was discussing how difficult the next day was going to be with two of my colleagues because we had to lay off others. And we were kind of just consoling each other on, you know, like tomorrow's going to suck. And we like, don't want to do this. And this, you know what, it's never whether you fire someone or you let someone go. It's never a good feeling, obviously on their side, but on the one doing it too, it also sucks a lot, and especially layoffs, because, you know, you're having to let people go like that don't really deserve it, right? It's a financial situation that it sucks. It just sucks all around. And we were literally just talking about that. I got the phone and I got on this next call and I was in complete shock. Like I didn't even know how to react. I just like sat there. I didn't really say much because it felt like every word I knew in the English language left my brain as I was given like the legally approved talk track. Like, you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know, like there is a legally approved, say this, don't say that. The same talk track that I was expected to give the following day. And the second I left the Zoom call, this tidal wave of emotion hit me and I just broke down. Like it was hard for me to even say the words I was laid off. I was heartbroken because I had started remote. I had only met a couple of my colleagues in person because they happened to also live in Chicago. And now I was never going to get the chance to meet the rest of them. And actually, I was supposed to that next week meet my whole team for the first time in person. And I was so looking forward to meeting them and connecting with them. And I would never get the chance to do that then. I would never meet them. And I wouldn't get the chance to implement the ideas that I had started to put together, my vision that I was really excited about, actually. As the company, they were in this quote unquote startup mode. They had seen a ton of rapid growth, but they were missing these like foundational structure and processes to set them up for future growth. And my experience was perfect for this role. I was so excited to dive in and make this lasting impact. Like I truly believed that I had been set up for success and I had the skills needed to not just accomplish what I was hired to do. No, but excel. And that is the best place to be when you start a new gig, isn't it? Like you don't want to come in when things are great and you have to make them better, right? When like there's nothing, I mean, there's usually something wrong. There's usually I cannot think of a position I've ever been in where everything was perfect, but knowing that you have the opportunity to make even some small changes that are going to have a big impact and to do it quickly, like, that's the dream. I could totally see why they hired me. And I was so excited to be able to make a difference, but that wouldn't happen now. And I was hurt. I had been doing a good job. But all of a sudden, I was second guessing every single conversation that I had had and every meeting I had been in. Was something wrong with me? Was there something they didn't like about me? Did I say something wrong? Was I not good enough? Did I come in too hot, in quotes, and piss someone off? And that's a joke, by the way, I have with a friend of mine because I met her at my old job and she used to say that I came in really hot. And she was like, don't do that when you go to your new place. And I did it. I took her advice. I did not come in too hot. Maybe according to LA standards, I did. I don't know. But not according to Chicago or New York standards, okay? But I truly just wanted to know why I was put on the list. And my imposter syndrome was flaring up in full force. Oh my Lord. Like that night, I was tossing and I was turning all night, overanalyzing every minute I had spent with that company. And I was being way too hard on myself. I got zero sleep, not even an exaggeration. I feel like people always say that, like, I got no sleep. And like, did you get no sleep? Like, you normally at least get a little bit, but I swear to God, I maybe an hour tops. Okay. And I was angry. Like, why the hell did they hire me in the first place? My interview process was almost as long as my tenure at the company. And that's insane, right? Like my interview process was like almost 2 months long. And I interviewed with every single colleague that I work with, plus HR, plus met my team. Like it was intense. I had just announced my pregnancy 3 days prior. And before you're thinking like lawsuit, like you should have filed a lawsuit. I thought about it. Christian definitely wanted me to. And he's not wrong. Maybe I should have. I don't know. But I truly, because I was part of the executive team and kind of saw these layoffs coming, these layoff conversations were happening, conversations like that happen longer than for a while before it actually happens. I'm not going to say how long we were talking about it, but like it wasn't a new that week. It wasn't a surprise to me that layoffs in general were happening. So me telling them I'm pregnant 3 days prior, I guarantee it was like after the decision was already made. It just wasn't a decision I was aware of yet. And I just truly do not believe that was a part of it. So I just didn't feel right to sue. and just for like the paycheck, which listen, would be great right now, but I just didn't feel like it was right. And I just wouldn't be able to look myself in the mirror just doing it for the paycheck. I'm just not one of those people. I'm not. Tempting, but I don't know, just not wasn't my vibe. But in my anger stage, all I could think about was what the hell just happened? Like, what kind of people hire for an executive role and then 2 months later include them in the layoffs after they help plan who was going to get laid off? And what kind of humans lay off a pregnant woman? Now, all of these are totally fair to be mad about because you know what? When you get laid off, like you have the right to be mad about whatever you want to be mad about. You go through all of those emotions, don't hold them back. But they are really reactionary. They're emotional reactions, they're not rational. And that's what the angry stage is about. It's why we take time to process and cool off before we make any decisions. And or at least we should. If you don't, please start doing that. Like don't action during the anger stage. You got to let that pass. Okay? It's why we drive around in our car singing loudly to the song ABCDEFG by Gail. And or is that just me? Because I'll tell you what, I am in a very healthy relationship. So when that song initially came out, like it wasn't speaking to me. Like I wasn't into it. I didn't want to hear some teenager like tell her boyfriend to like fuck off because I don't know. I don't feel that way to my husband. And I was like, she's a teenager, like she'll grow up. But I'll tell you what, that day, or not that day, but the day after, when I was picking my mom up from the airport, the lyrics of I'm not going to try to sing it. Don't try to. I may have a good podcasting voice, but that doesn't translate to singing. The lyrics of fuck you and your mom and your sister and your broke ass job, like those lyrics truly spoke to my heart that day. And I was blasting that thing in my car and it felt great. It felt great. But most of all, I was scared. I was 13 weeks pregnant and now I didn't have an income. I'm not going to sit here and feel sorry for myself. I have savings, I have investments, and I have a very, very supportive and amazing husband that immediately made it super clear that he didn't want me to rush into anything or to worry about money or to stress out. Because you know what? There are plenty of folks that were laid off that week that don't have the support and savings that I have. And I was lucky for that in the grand scheme of things. But I'm also recently married at 39, and I have been taking care of myself financially since I was 21. And I understand that marriage is a partnership. You know, that's what my mom kept saying. She's like, it's a partnership. And Christian may be the one that supports me right now. And there might be a day where that role is reversed. And I do understand that. I swear, like logically, I understand that. However, the idea of not contributing financially makes me very uncomfortable because I have always paid my own way and I've never owed anyone anything. And it's something I really pride myself in. And we're having a baby this year. Babies are freaking expensive, okay? And that's not even just the, healthcare. It's all the crap you got to buy. It's the daycare. It's the nurses. It's a lot. Like it's expensive. And the last thing I want to do is be the cause of added stress to him as we look ahead to the increased expense of a child. And I don't want to drain my own savings before the baby comes either, because I don't feel like that's a responsible way to go. I truly am appreciative of him and his willingness to jump in and help me when I need it. But I also love him and I don't want to do that to him either. On the flip side, what the hell was I going to do? Because when you quit, you kind of, right? Like it's your decision. So you kind of have a plan for what you're going to do after. But unlike that, I wasn't expecting to be laid off, especially after 2 months. I definitely was like not expecting that. So I had put zero thought into what's next. And I had no idea what the answer was. What did I want to do? can I now say I'm officially burnt out on agencies? If I didn't work at an agency, what would I do? Where would I work? What path would I take? And how realistic was it for me to start interviewing for another full-time position to then have to take maternity leave 6 months later? And I know it's technically illegal for a company to discriminate based on my pregnancy status, but from my perspective, it usually takes like a couple months, right? When you start a job to get your footing in the new role. And it would be disruptive to have to take 3 months off after only being there for 6. It would be such a momentum killer. And that's even assuming I found another job I wanted that quickly. Because listen, time is a ticking. And this little girl, yes, girl, very excited. This little girl may be on time. Or what if she's early? I don't think she's going to be late because I think I'm too old where they wouldn't let me like carry her later. But I don't know when she's coming and I can't control that. I don't know how hard my 3rd trimester will be. What if I get put on bed rest? Oh my God, that would suck. That would suck so bad. I hope that doesn't happen. But what if I get put on bed rest? What if I'm really struggling being like as big as a house and I like can't move around? I don't know. Because I'll tell you what, I'm already starting to show at 13 weeks. So I'm assuming I'm not going to be one of those lucky women who can just walk around in high heels and still run around like no big deal at 30 weeks. Is that even real, by the way? Or is that just Rihanna? So I guess the big question is where do we go from here? Well, guess what? I don't know. And I'm not afraid to say it. For the first time in my life, I have no freaking idea. For now, I'm focusing on my passion, which is this podcast actually, and writing. I have finished my first book and it will be available very shortly. Don't worry, I'll let you know. It's going to be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And being a published author has been a lifelong dream of mine. And it's finally happening. It's very exciting. I actually already have copies at home and I've given all my free copies away. I'm going to enjoy my pregnancy as I only plan on doing this once. And okay, don't even start with the whole like, that's what you say now, but like, just wait. Oh my God. Can I just say quickly how annoying that is? Like if you are one of those people where someone says, this is my last one, or this is my only one, and you say anything other than that's great. Stop. Just shut up. Shut up. Don't be that person. It's super annoying. I'm going to tell you if no one has told you this before. It's really annoying. Just because you decided to have more than one doesn't mean that I will. And guess what? If I do at some point, then it's my choice and it's none of your damn business. But what I don't need right now is being told that I'm going to have more than one. Like let's just focus. Let's just focus on this one. Let's focus on this pregnancy first. Let's focus on having a healthy, happy child this first time before we jump into the second. Because calm down, folks. Calm down. I just lost my job and I'm dealing with pregnancy hormones. So like, just give me a second. After almost 20 years in advertising, I find myself at a crossroads. I have recorded 51 episodes of this podcast prior to this, where we talked about how the midlife crisis gets a bad rap. Maybe it doesn't have to be about buying a Corvette or dating someone half your age. Maybe a midlife crisis is an opportunity for positive change. Well, guess what? It's time to find out if that's true or just bullshit. Now is the official start of my own midlife crisis. This is going to be my journey to self-discovery and trying to figure out what positive changes I need to make in my life so the next 40 years are even better than the last. And I invite you to come with me on this journey during season 2. From rethinking my career to going through a geriatric pregnancy, because yes, you heard that right. A pregnancy after the age of 35 is officially called geriatric. I know, it's depressing. And I hope you'll be on this journey with me. I hope maybe you're inspired to start a journey of your own. And guess what? We can do it together. Please rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts and help me find new listeners. Join me on my social channels to get more content and inspiration. You can follow my Almost Midlife Crisis on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can also check out my new YouTube channel with videos of episodes and shorts that are going to keep you entertained all week. Yeah, I'm trying out video, so be nice. This is my first video frontier. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you're always up to date on the latest episodes. And if you prefer the written version, then you can get them delivered right to your inbox at myalmostmidlifecrisis.com. Until next week.